What's up, guys? Today we're going to be having a look at the Hamilton Navy Khaki Frogman. This is a reissue of quite a famous watch from the 40s, if I'm not mistaken, that was used by the the Navy team, the Frogmen, and it was also kind of turned into an icon by being used in the movie, The Frogman. Now, the first thing that you'll get with this watch, depending on where you order it from, I have seen some places that just give it in a plain cardboard box, a plain Hamilton box, but in my case I made sure to get it with this case just because I'd seen some people doing reviews and showing this case and I knew I had to have it. I mean, this case is absolutely beautiful. As you can see, it's quite a heavy, substantial case. It has the Hamilton logo there on the side. It has kind of like a faux leather texture around it, and it's made of quite durable, like heavy-duty plastic. It has the same kind of lock-in mechanism that the watch itself has. So you just pull this part back, and then the top pops up, and you put the watch right there. And it has a glass top, so I mean, this is a really nice display box regardless of the watch. I mean, you'd be really happy to have one of these up on your desk and just to be able to show off your watch. Now let's move into the watch itself. So there are a lot of things that I like about this watch. There are a lot of things that I wish they would have done differently, but overall, I mean, I think, as you can see in the title, that this is probably the best diver watch that you can buy currently for right about $500, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I got this one in England, so I paid in pounds, but I paid right about $500. Now, in my opinion, the fact that they only have the blue version of the color scheme and the black one for the 42mm version of this watch, and not the black dial with the red bezel like they do for the 44mm version, is quite a letdown, because personally I love the look of the 44mm one. I think it just looks absolutely beautiful. Not to say this one doesn't, but I would have preferred to have that choice. I'm not really sure why they didn't include that, why they reserved that only for the 44mm version, which personally, maybe if it wouldn't be for the fact that this watch has such a huge crown guard, I'd be able to live with, but with the crown guard, 44mm is just too big. But anyways, this version is the blue with the blue bezel, and it has a sunburst dial. Very nice. It has sapphire crystal, ever so slightly domed. You also have anti-reflective coating, which works pretty well. One of my favorite things about the dial is the fact that they're using the old Hamilton logo, so it's that Hamilton H, and it's in chrome. Very nice. I think this looks better than the current logo. Also, all the applied indices are have chrome edges, so you get quite a lot of shine when it hits the right sunlight, as you can see right here. I also really like the style that they went with for the hour and minute hands, and this second hand is just beautiful. I mean, I think that red tip really adds a touch of color that just separates this watch away from so many other blue dial diver watches. Now, one of my main complaints with this watch is the fact that they've gone for an aluminum bezel. I think that this watch needs a ceramic bezel. I mean, it's just asking for it, it's just begging for a ceramic bezel. I would have wished that maybe they'd increase the price by another $30–40 and given us that ceramic bezel, because it would have been well worth it. The aluminum doesn't really work with the whole idea of a rugged Navy special ops kind of watch. Which, by all means, this one is. I mean, this is a really well made, really solid watch, so there's no reason why you couldn't use this for the actual purpose that it's being made for, which is for diving. It is resistant to 300 meters. Now, another thing that kind of bothers me is the fact that there's so much emphasis made on this locking system, which is a reissue of a very basic locking mechanism that the original had, that was just kind of like a chain connecting the crown guard to just a case to stop it from getting lost. But I mean, there's a lot of emphasis made on this version, even going as far as actually putting lock on it, which personally, normally I wouldn't think I'd be too happy about that. I think it looks a bit tacky. It looks kind of like what Invicta does in some of their models, but on this watch it does work. But I would have liked to see that same level of visual impact kind of translate into actual functionality, because the truth is that this takes away a lot more functionality than it adds. So you're going to see what I mean. Let's just unscrew this. Now it is really easy to screw down and unscrew. The problem arises when you try to change the time or the date. So as you can see, the thread where this part connects to the actual watch is thicker than the crown itself. So it's really hard to just kind of grip it without getting the base instead of the crown. So what you have to do is just kind of pinch it with your fingertips, and it's just ridiculously small. I mean, the fact that they've made such a substantial watch with such a small crown is just absurd in my opinion. But also you have the fact that this locking mechanism won't even stay in place. So I mean, it just kind of hangs there. And not only does it just stay there, but you have to kind of put your fingers under it because it won't go past this point. So you have to kind of put your fingers under it to try and grab the crown. It's just it's just a nuisance, to be honest. I mean, it makes the whole experience of trying to adjust the time and the date on this watch a real pain. And personally, I would have preferred that they either had made this locking mechanism more refined and made it actually have some use, or at least allow it to lock into place. I mean, to lock into place, or just got rid of it, because this is just more hassle than it is reward. Although it does look good, but I mean, at the end of the day, I would have expected something like this to actually add some kind of extra functionality to the watch, and personally I don't think it does. Now let's move on to the actual case itself. So as you can see, this comes on an oyster style bracelet, very, very nice. Now obviously this one is quite scratched up. I've been using this for a few months now, but very nice bracelet. It has solid end links and it has screw pins. Polished center parts, brushed and slightly reflective end parts. Really nice looking. A quite thick bracelet. Really comfortable. You don't have any problems with it pinching your skin or anything. Then we move on to the actual clasp, and probably one of my favorite parts of this watch is the diver's extension that can also be used for adjusting, for doing micro adjustments. Really easy to use, so you get an extra, I'd say probably 2 links worth, or maybe a link and a half worth of adjustment. All you have to do is just push down these buttons here and you can open it all the way there, or open it in steps, in increments, which go just like that. So that's just really practical. I use that pretty much every day. Now, the clasp is pretty nice, well made, solid, no problem. It clicks into place nicely and securely. It stays locked with no issue. Easy enough to open. I mean, it's just a simple push clasp. So yeah, pretty good there. Now, something that maybe I would have liked to see. I mean, I'm not sure. I think that the issue with the case back for me lies on the fact that I don't really like the design that they've put at the back. So as you can see there, you've got kind of like a scuba diver and just Hamilton and Hamilton 3 times. I'm not a fan of that on any watch. I mean, once again, that reminds me of like something Invicta would do, just put Invicta everywhere. But I just don't like this case back. I would have liked to see something with a bit deeper of an engraving, a nicer logo of an engraving, because I mean, this is kind of the center part, and I don't know, it's just not, it just doesn't look nice. I mean, I think about the case backs on a Seamaster or Christopher Ward Trident C60, for example. Those have really nice looking designs on the case back. So I would have maybe preferred to have an exhibition case back to be able to see that caliber H10 movement, which is just a rework of ETA 2824, and it's been adjusted so that it has a lower beats per hour, but it has a much higher power reserve of about 80 hours. And I have tested that out, and it is true. I've gotten 70 plus hours with no issue, which is quite amazing. I mean, that is actually amazing. I would have liked to see the movement. I've taken the back off, and the movement is pretty decently looking, as you'd expect 28-24. Had they maybe decorated the rotor a bit more, you would have had something that would have been worth slapping a display case back on, or just making this this solid case back with a nicer design. Outside of that, I mean, I don't really like what it looks like at the moment. But anyways, that's just a case back. Who cares about the case back? Now, if you actually look at the profile of the watch, considering it is quite a chunky, hefty watch, I mean, it's quite heavy, it has a big wrist presence. Even for 42mm, it feels like probably even bigger than that, but it wears comfortably. I mean, it has a lot of wrist presence, but it's comfortable to wear. It's not one of those watches that's going to leave your hand or your wrist aching at the end of the day. It's a comfortable watch to wear. As you can see, the back of the case is ever so slightly curved, so it kind of adjusts to the shape of your wrist. Now, in terms of finishing on the case, you have a mostly brushed finishing on the case, including the sides. You do get a good amount of shine and reflection to it, but it is brushed throughout. Now, I do really like how the sides taper into the lugs. It adds a bit more style to a watch that could end up looking too blocky had it not been for these slight curves in the case. I also like how flat the crystal is. So as you can see there, really flat, really nice looking. The clarity in it is really good. No problem with hazing or anything like that, as you'd expect for a Hamilton watch in this range. Outside of that, another thing I like is how nicely done this sunburst dial is. So I mean, I've got a few sunburst dial watches. Probably my favorite one is the Oris Aquis. Obviously that's a classic watch, but this one I think actually has a nicer sunburst effect. And I say that just because it's not just a sunburst dial kind of pattern where it goes around, as you can see, so it's kind of like a cylindrical effect, but it also has a few different, what would look like different shades of blue. So I mean, depending on the light, which maybe you can't see here too well, but depending on the light, it's either a bright, just in your face blue, or it's kind of like a royal deep blue. It's just really nice, really well made, really well executed, and it is certainly a looker of a watch. So yeah, I mean, overall, what can I say about this watch? For the money, for about $500, I don't really think you can get anything better than this at the moment. I mean, I would say that this is right up there in terms of a fit and finish with the Christopher Ward C60, which is more expensive than this one, and also the C60 is a watch that I like a lot. So take that as you may. But yeah, I mean, no real complaints. I've been using this steadily for a few months, no issues, keeps perfect time, gains about 4 or 5 seconds a day, which is perfectly fine, especially for this kind of a movement. The lume is excellent. I can't do a lume shot at the moment because there's bright sunlight just outside, but the lume is excellent and it'll easily go all night on one charge. So yeah, I mean, no real complaints here, and the Hamilton Frogman is definitely a keeper in my collection. Till the next time, guys, peace.